Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's lesson. This is the last part, the last section in topic number one. And this is called translating word problems into functional equations. If you're given a description in English of a problem, of a certain situation, can you take that and convert it into an actual equation, an actual function? It starts on page 42 in your notes. Now, here at the very beginning, it basically just tells you some words or some expressions that you can use for the various operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now, this is very similar to a topic that you've done in Math 1700. So you've seen most of this before. So this is basically just a review right here. Some terms that can mean addition, that can mean add. They would be words such as sum. That's a big one for addition. Total of blank and blank. Some of these are pretty obvious. If you see the word plus, well, obviously that refers to addition. Increased by or an increase of means addition. Something together with something or something combined with something also refers to addition. Now, some words that mean subtraction. Let's have a look at some of these. Probably the biggest one is difference. The difference between blank and blank. That would mean a subtraction right there. So, for example, if you wanted to find the difference between two people's ages, well, then obviously what you would do is you'd find the older of the two people and you would subtract the age of the younger person. So that's definitely a difference right there, a subtraction. Minus is an obvious one. Decreased by means you're making something smaller. Reduced by also means the same thing. Less, something take away something else, or something fewer than something else. If, for example, 5 fewer than x would be x minus 5. Same with less than. 5 less than x would also be x minus 5, and not 5 minus x. Okay, some words that mean multiplication. Multiplied by and multiply blank by blank are obvious ones. A big one is product. Okay, that means you multiply. The sum of 5 and 3 is 8, but the product of 5 and 3 is 15. Times is another obvious one. Doubled and twice means you multiply something by 2. Another word, tripled, means you multiply something by 3. Even percent of means a multiplication. If you wanted to take 25% of a number, well, you would call that 0.25 multiplied by whatever your number was. That's how you would find the percent. And fraction of, common fractions would be 1/2, 1 over 2, or 1/3, 1 over 3, or 1/4 means 1 over 4. So read those carefully, but they all mean multiply. If you wanted to take 1/4 of a number, you would multiply 1 over 4 times whatever that number is. Division, quotient is a big word. That means you would divide the first number by the second number. So the quotient of 5 and x is 5 over x, not x over 5. The first number comes first. Divide, divided by, those are some pretty obvious, I think, expressions that mean division. But like I say, you've done this anyway back in Math 1700. Now, some other things you're going to require for this topic would be some of the basic functions that you've seen over the years. Now, some of these are very basic. Some of these probably wouldn't be supplied to you, but some of them perhaps would be. In fact, I've got a sheet, I believe, of some useful formulas like these, and I think I'm going to post that up on D2L so that everyone can download a copy of that, and you can use that sheet then for quizzes and also for tests as well. Area of a rectangle. That's a pretty obvious one. That one you should know that one anyway. The area of a rectangle is equal to the length multiplied by the width. All right. Now, sometimes you may also see something called the perimeter of a rectangle. The perimeter, of course, means the distance all the way around. That would be the length plus the width plus the length plus the width again. And you're probably used to seeing this formula, 2L plus 2W. That would be the perimeter of a rectangle. The area of a triangle, again, that's an obvious one. You've seen that for a while now. 1/2 the base times the height. And the area of a circle, of course, is pi r squared. All right? You've seen that one before. The circumference of a circle, actually, there's two different ways you can write the circumference of a circle. C equals 2 pi r. That's one way. Or C is equal to pi multiplied by d, which in this case is the diameter. All right. Now, the circumference of a circle, by the way, it really means the same thing as the perimeter of the circle, the distance all the way around the outside. And here's some formulas for volume. Now, again, some of these you've seen. Some of them you may not have used much. A rectangular prism is length times width times height. That, by the way, a rectangular prism is a fancy name for a box. That's all that means, a rectangular prism. There's a length, there's a width, there's a height. The volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. Now, that one would be provided for certain. Triangular prism, you don't see this one very often, but it's actually 1/2 times the base times the height times L. All right, so that would be for a triangular prism. You don't see that one very often at all. Okay, basically, think of a triangular prism as almost like a rectangle, but instead of almost like a box, sorry, but instead of a rectangle for a base, it's got a triangle for a base. So it's the area of the base times the height. That's what they refer to as L there. It's actually the length of it. Now, here is where the word problems start. And so I'm going to go over these examples with you here. You have to be very careful with these. You have to know exactly what it is you're looking for. And you have to come up with a plan to come up with or to find, to calculate the function that they're asking for. Now, the first 3 words in this problem tells me what they're looking for. This says express the volume. So when you have this question finished, when all is said and done, your formula better start with V equals, volume of something. All right, that's the way this works. So your formula is going to be V equals. Now, read the rest of the question. It says of a 5 centimeter high cylinder. Okay. So you're going to need the formula for the volume of a cylinder. But then it says, and here's the other important part to this problem. Look at this. As a function of the diameter. All right, so that means that your final equation, your final answer, yes, it's going to be V equals, but then on the right-hand side of your equation, whatever is over there, you're going to have numbers and mathematical symbols and all those types of things. But the only variable that should be there is D. That's what it means to write it as a function of the diameter D. Okay, so you probably don't know that formula right off the bat. And that's going to be true for practically all of these questions that we look at. So here's what you do. You start off by writing down the formula for the volume of a cylinder. And now you might remember that, you might have to look it up, but that will be provided anyway. The volume of a cylinder is basically the area of the base, which is a circle, times the height. All right, so that would be pi r squared. That's your base, that's the area of a circle, multiplied by the height. Now, that's the formula you're starting with. That's what you have. But remember, the only variable that should be in that formula when you're finished is D. D for diameter. All right? So that means that somehow, some way, this R, that has to go. That we can't leave R there. And also this H has to go. They both go, and somehow, some way, they must be replaced only with D. Okay? Now, if you read the question again carefully, I can see, now look at this part right here. Look at that right there. We're told that the cylinder is 5 centimeters high anyway. So you can just put in a 5 for H. No problem. You can just put that right in there. And then that will change your formula. Then there's only the R that you have to worry about. But remember what R stands for. If you have a circle, let me just draw a little circle there. There is the radius of the circle. All right. The diameter, now just make sure you see that that's the radius, but the diameter of a circle actually goes all the way across. And the relationship between those two, you might recall, is that the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. And that's just the relationship. So what does that mean for this problem? Well, if you want this R to be replaced in that equation, now you want to replace the H with a 5, but if you want the R replaced, take this equation right here, D equals 2 times R, and you get the R by itself, which is simple in this case, isn't it? You would just divide both sides by 2, and you end up with, the 2's cancel, of course, R is equal to the diameter divided by 2. Now that is what we call a secondary equation. All right, it's totally different from the first equation we have, but we need that to substitute for R in our main equation. So here's what we're going to do. Watch carefully. This implies that volume is equal to pi. All right, I'll leave the pi there. Now in place of R, I write D divided by 2. That's what R is equal to according to our secondary function. Don't forget that part gets squared. And then in place of the H, I'm just going to write 5. Now remember, when you do come up with this formula, it's a function of the diameter D in centimeters. Now, if you look carefully at this function, everybody, basically that's your answer because it's expressing the volume V equals. And if you look on that right-hand side there now, the only variable there is D. This is perfect. Remember, pi is not a variable. Pi is a constant. Now, the only other thing I would suggest is we simplify this a little bit. So if you want to, you can put the 5 in front of the pi. And D over 2 all squared, that becomes multiplied by D squared over 4. Okay, and there is another little thing you can do to simplify further. Usually constants, any just numbers, are written in front of the expression. So you can combine the 5 and then the divided by 4 part. You can just write that as 5 over 4 and pi and then multiplied by the D squared. And there you go, everybody. There is your final answer. This, again, if you read the question carefully, it says express the volume, and that's what we have by itself is the volume, as a function of the diameter D. The only variable over here on the right-hand side of your equation is D. That's it. So we have answered this equation. We've answered this problem, sorry, question number 1 in example 10. Now, I'm looking at my time. I've only got about a minute left. And that's not really time to start the next one. But I am going to do at least number 2 and 3 and perhaps a few more. We can go over some of the other ones in class anyway. But I'll end this video here now. And what I will do is I'll make another video and we'll do question number 2 and 3 on page 43 as well. Okay? So I'll finish this one. Bye-bye for now.